Hey, welcome back. This is We Are Not Experts, an airplane building podcast. My name is Chris.
And I'm Tim.
And we are not experts, as you can tell by our attempts at podcasting and building airplanes. We're recording this on Sunday, January 26, 2025. It is in the evening here in East Texas, and it's a little bit earlier where you are, Tim. Tim, where the hell are you?
I am in not so sunny Lancaster, California.
Not so sunny Lancaster, California. Well, the weather's the same over here, by the way, not too far from your actual home. How the hell are you?
I am captive in a hotel room, but other than that, pretty good.
This is the end of week one of, is it 3 weeks astray?
Yeah, roughly. Things went a little quicker than planned this week, I think. And if things continue this way next week will be my last week here, and I'll be home the beginning of the week after. So more progress.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, the weather is, well, you missed the snowpocalypse that happened. You got out of town just in time for that.
Wouldn't say I missed it, but
yeah, it was kind of fun. Somewhat related and somewhat not. I didn't do any building out in the garage the whole week. I've had a ton of actual adult work to be doing, but the fact that it was like less than 30 degrees in the shop during the week, it kind of made it easier for me to make the decision to stay in and in the office and do the work that I was supposed to be doing.
To be fair, I mean, I'm in the desert in California, but it was about the same temperature where I was working all week long. So it's not much better.
Yeah. Well, better than your previous trip to South Dakota the week before that, I think.
Way better than that, and the scenery is better. I'm working out at Edwards Air Force Base, so much cool stuff I'm not allowed to take pictures of taxiing by.
You can't take pictures of it, can't talk about it, other than to say that it's cool.
Got the NASA U2 or day before yesterday. That was pretty awesome.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all white NASA U2. That thing was so cool looking.
No kidding. That is awesome. So for the people who are listening to this only, you don't know that this is our first video podcast, which is a surprise to me because I didn't think that we were going to do a video on this one, but Tim surprised me and he had it set up when he stepped into the studio. So I threw mine together really quickly. So yeah, we're growing like crazy. This is just incredible. I mean, we have literally several listeners around the globe. And I suspect that once they find out that we're doing this video, we're going to get several more global
and for those
viewers. Yeah. So this is episode 4 of what I'm sure will be more than 4 episodes of We Are Not Experts, an airplane building podcast. So let's talk a little bit about, I don't know, building airplanes. Although it has been a slow building week for me, it has not been an uninteresting one. And I know that you, although you are far away from your shop, have had some interesting developments. Let's start with you.
Okay. Well, I have tried to stay busy during the week. Not so much. I was busy with work. Over the weekend, I kept busy with designing the electrical system for the plane. I got some more progress done on the schematics. I think I've roughly hashed out the power distribution. It's getting more complicated by the second, especially since I've got a fairly electrically dependent airplane at this point, or at least in my head I do. But I'm getting some pretty good help. One of the chief electrical engineer that works for my company is kind of helping me out, so that's handy.
Okay.
Got a lot of stuff on paper, redesigned some panel stuff, so that all went really well. But the big news, it's good and it's bad, was Friday I won the eBay auction for the 360 that's down here in Southern California. I went back and forth on it for a while, and I threw in the buy it now. I bought it. I have it. I don't physically have it. That's the downside. I have heard absolutely nothing from the seller since making that payment on Friday. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Hoping to go get it this weekend. It's about 100 miles south of where I'm at. Mm-hmm. I've heard nothing. If he happens to be one of the, plethora of listeners we have out there, please answer your emails and get back to me. So I've got one more weekend here that I can possibly go get it. The idea being if I can grab it while I'm here, I can get it sent back to Texas, and it'll be a good core to start tearing down for an overhaul and turn into the engine of my dreams, maybe.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I don't think that really up until the last couple of weeks you ever thought that you would be buying a helicopter engine off of eBay to power your airplane.
No, for those that don't know, that's what the H in HIO 360 stands for. It is a angle valve 360 that was originally designated for helicopter use. I think it was the something 300. I can't remember which brand it is. Hope there is that being a helicopter engine may be less likely to have had a prop strike. I'm hoping I can get it for one, and then I can strip it down and send the parts off to start getting inspected and machined as necessary. And for what I got it for, it's worth it. Even if some of the parts turn out to be bad, it still ends up being the cheaper route to go. I don't know. It'll be a lot more fun, I think, to build the engine. I'm not going to do this completely solo. I'm going to try and enlist the help of actual A&P if I can find a willing one in the area to oversee the reassembly of this engine. I don't need it to be certified or yellow tagged or signed off, but I do want the expert opinion of somebody who knows how it goes to make sure that I'm doing it right.
Well, I mean, that to me sounds like an exciting adventure. Like even if that thing never ended up in the airplane, it's still something like I would be very interested in doing something like that myself. It's just one more cool project.
It'll be something to do in the interim, in between waiting for a fuselage and whatever else happens. There'll always be that in the background to add spice to everything else, because I just can't leave well enough alone. So.
Yeah. So if you do hear from this seller of helicopter engines in the next 2 weeks, what's your plan to get that thing home? Is it in Long Beach?
It is in Vista, California, so it's down by Oceanside.
Okay. Yep. I'm familiar. Quite familiar.
Go down there, get it, bring it back up here, and then I've got 2 giant tool containers that need to be shipped back to Texas when the job is done. So my plan is to just kind of stick it inside of one, let it hitch a ride to Texas, and then I can get it when it gets back there home. So that's the plan. We'll see if it works out. Like I said, no contact as of now. We'll see. I'm holding out hope. I really, really am. One way or another, eBay's already promised to give me my money back if I don't hear from them. I really don't want the money back. I want the engine. So I hope I hear from them.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that when we spoke a few days before that, you said you'd change your mind about it. You don't think you're going to do it. And then you let me know, I guess I want it. And I think that once that had happened, you emotionally, you're there now. Like, I got the thing. So in your mind, you've already started taking that thing apart.
Oh yeah. I've poured over the catalogs already and the overhaul manuals. And that's part of what kind of helped change my mind, was the reason I originally changed my mind, decided I didn't want it, was because it is an angle valve and replacement cylinders aren't as cheap or easy to get if you need to get them. But I found a few different shops that just specialize in rebuilding the cylinder heads themselves, and the thought that they, for the most part, unless they're completely trash, should be rebuildable and for an okay price. So
compared
that
to what you,
be okay. So we'll see. The guy I talked to at Aircraft Specialties in Tulsa, just to get an idea of sending the parts in and what that was going to be, I told him what the engine was, and he said they actually make really good engines for experimental aircraft. So it's not unheard of that these have been done before.
Yeah.
Just wait and see what happens.
Well, that's kind of exciting. I'm really hoping that thing does end up in your shop here soon. You said one other thing that I didn't want to pass by, because I'm interested in when you're talking about power distribution, and you said because I have a very I think you said electrical dependent aircraft. Explain.
So the plan I have for the airplane, people have seen like hints of the glass cockpit. All the instrumentation, everything inside is all obviously electric. There's no steam gauges or anything of that nature. So that's part of it. Can you fly the plane without any of that stuff working? Absolutely. It'll fly through the air just fine with none of that working. Maybe not through the weather, but it'll fly. But I plan to put a SDS, electronic fuel injection and ignition system, on this plane. And the downside to that is they both need electricity to keep the airplane running. Unlike a traditional airplane engine, which would have magnetos, once the engine is running, the magnetos are self-generating. They make their own power. Unless the magneto takes a crap, and then it's the same situation. You've lost power and the plane dies. So in my case, I have to make sure that the electrical system is robust enough that I am always being able to provide power to, I'm calling it the engine battery bus, but to the engines for the both the ECUs, the fuel injectors themselves, the ignition coils, all need to have power maintained to them, and the fuel pump. So in that regard, in the aero connection, manual. I've been perusing that thing for how to design the system, and they have a example system in there. I think it's called Z19, which is their take on a robust system for that kind of a engine situation. So it's basically going to be two different batteries. One's dedicated just to the engine systems, and it can be isolated from everything else, plus the alternator. And just for good measure, because I've seen them and they seem really cool and they're not that bad, the MZ Monkworks MZ30 backup generator. It mounts to the vacuum pad. So four
Oh,
different
okay.
sources. If I lose all power in this plane, I've had a much worse day
Yeah,
than
exactly.
anything
That's
else.
probably the least of your, if that's the case, you
Yeah,
probably don't have to worry about the plane flying because it's probably already in the ground in pieces if you've lost all
yeah.
four.
That all of that fails. So I'm trying to make it as simple as I can, even though it sounds overly complicated. It should be fairly simple. The other weird thing is I've kind of gone back and forth, and I'm sure I will again. And Ryan's videos kind of help steer me in that direction on
Mm-hmm.
circuit breakers, fuses. Turns out the way I'm building this right now, it's going to have a mix of both. I'll
Mm-hmm.
have a few circuit breakers for a few things that I absolutely want to be able to either isolate or reset.
Yeah.
Everything else will be on fuses that I can somewhat access if I need to.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of the Dynon system with what I just got quoted from them is going to be the ACM panel, which is an electric um, an electric circuit breaker panel. But all the stuff that's going to live on there is stuff that I 100% can live without if that thing takes a crap or I lose control over that system.
Yeah. Are you doing, and this is an area that I still have a ton to learn about, but I know that it's very popular to go with vertical power, which is, I think, a very self-contained central.
That is what Dynon ACM, it's their version of the
Okay.
vertical power.
All
So
right.
it's the advanced control module. It provides a hub, and this is the reason I talked to them recently. You get this early in part of their jumpstart kit, and
Mm-hmm.
it provides a connection hub for all the other components. So the EFIS will plug into it, the radios will plug into it, everything will plug into this central point to make
Yeah.
wiring easier in theory. And as a bonus, it has built-in digital circuit breakers. So you can go in, just like
Mm-hmm.
vertical power, assign what you want the current limit to be, when you want it to trip. You can go in while the system's running and see what the current draw is on all the items on it. So I'm going to use that, but I'm only using it for, like I said, the stuff that I 100% can live without. My lights will be on, my landing lights, taxi lights, nav lights, all that will be on there. One of my comm radios will be on there. The transponder will probably live on there because
Mm-hmm.
I really don't care if I lose that at some point. It would be good to have, but that'll be on there. The starter, stuff I need on the ground for sure, but not necessarily stuff I need in the air. So
Man,
that's what that.
yeah,
It's
it's a
all in my head
lot.
right now. All weekend, just going over this stuff and trying to kind of sort it out because it has to happen at some point. I figure I might as well do it while I'm stuck in a hotel room and
Sure. Right. Yeah.
have the ability to work on the plane itself. So when I get home, I can start putting some of it into practice.
Yeah. I mean, I know that in terms of like what we're trying to do in building these airplanes, that if you chose to, this is something that you could completely take off your plate and go to somebody like Midwest Panel Builders and say, I want an all Dynon. These are what
Yep.
I want, and they just send it to you, and it's wired, done, ready to go. Obviously, that comes at a pretty steep price, but doing it on your own, it is just an absolute ton of work, but that's work that I really want to do. People that I've talked to who have wired their own panel, they all seem to like it's one of the favorite things that they did when they're building their airplane.
Well, and the
So,
more stuff you do to your plane yourself, the more you know it. So
yeah.
you know exactly where that wire is or how it's routed, and you know how to go find it and fix it. And so yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, you know what? I completely agree. Like, I want to have my hand in every single part of this thing because, I mean, it is one of the core reasons that we are allowed to build airplanes. The reason that the experimental category exists is for education and, you know, developing your knowledge of the whole whatever. I mean, I guess I could have prepared and actually had that out word for word. But yeah, I want to learn all of this. Is that's part of the adventure. Obviously, in the very beginning, when I was aware of like a Van's RV8, I wanted to fly the airplane. But now I'm really interested in building the airplane and learning all of that. And someday someday I'll get to fly it, but I've made peace with the fact that this is a very long process, and I'm enjoying, even though it seems like it's often a catastrophe when I'm building, I am enjoying it completely. And getting to the panel is something that, one of the reasons that I'm looking forward to it is just getting out of the working on metal part. And I could be completely wrong about this, but when I think about the kind of errors that will certainly happen when I'm like wiring the panel, how they compare to the kind of errors that I make now when I'm working on metal. Like, I mean, I'll probably be banging my head against the wall because something isn't working properly because I, didn't get a good crimp on a pin or something like that. But on the metal stuff, if I just auger out a hole trying to drill out a pull rivet that's in an impossible spot, and I find myself drilling out, I don't know, 140 rivets
Hypothetically.
to, I'm like, I want a little break from that kind of, there's so much destruction. I mean,
Yeah,
certainly a panel like the potential exists to completely f up a connector and then flip a switch and watch the whole thing go up in smoke. I saw something
yeah.
the other day.
You
I hadn't seen it
don't
long.
want smoke.
Yeah,
Never want to let smoke out. Never work right again once you let it out.
yeah. It just reminded me of something I saw a couple of days ago that I hadn't seen in a while, but it was like, um, every machine is a smoke machine if you do it wrong enough.
Absolutely, at least one.
Yeah. Yeah. So the potential certainly exists to find out that I put a smoke generator in my panel, but I'm looking forward to that challenge. Now, still on the topic of the panel and all this electrical whatnot, you do this kind of semi frequently. You like went to the source and talked to the folks about what your plan is here, and this time with Dynon. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So Advanced Flight Systems, which is a subsidiary of Dynon now. I guess they were a separate
Hmm.
company. Um, they do an advanced panel building program, and it used to be kind of like we were talking about with Steiner, where you just go to them, tell them what you want, and they build it for
Yeah.
you. And they very much do that. But now they're starting to cater to more do-it-yourselfers. The ACM panel, for example, they've had that for a
Hmm.
while. It was only available if you bought one of their entire systems from them and they build it. A part of the reason is they actually hook everything up there, program it all, test it. If you do that yourself, they can't do that. But now they are catering more to the people that want to do more DIY with their panels. So I reached out to them. They emailed me back and set up a video interview. And I had a video call with them a few days ago where they asked me a whole series of questions, if I knew what I was adding to the plane. And based on that discussion, they sent me a quote, which was big. Um, they sent me a quote. It was really good though, because some things I was thinking about doing, they kind of talked me out of, which was refreshing instead of talking me into a lot of stuff. And they steered me into other directions with other things. Like, I mean, a quick example is I was looking at doing two comm radios. So I had a comm one and a comm two. And that's mainly because I want to be able to do formation stuff with people.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to have ATC one radio and still be talking on another one. So I was going to do two Dynon comm radios. And he pointed out to me that once you add in the radio plus an intercom panel and an audio panel, if you add that in, it's cheaper and better to just go with, I think it's a PAR 200B from PS Engineering. And it's an intercom panel. It's an intercom, comm panel, and comm radio in one unit, and the whole
Okay.
thing together cheaper than all three of those other components it replaces individually. And you don't end up with a weird flip-flop switch for the mic, and now you have a much better way to control the system. So I was like, that's really cool, other than it's a standard size piece of avionics that I had to go figure out where I'm going to put that in the panel, since I didn't have room for such a thing, which led me down another path of an experiment I'm going to try after I get the fuselage in, since the fuselage or the instrument panel, that forward part of the fuselage, I guess, is part of what gets built first. So you get to the framework of the instrument panel fairly
Hmm.
quickly. So I'm going to try and redesign some things, and I've got a plan in the works for a panel that I think is more conducive to today's more modern large screen EFIS
Yeah.
systems. Because the instrument panel is very limited real estate the way it shows up from bands. You can't really
Well,
fit a big screen in there and a full radio stack.
I'm not really. I haven't even taken a look to see how that shows up from Vans. In my mind, I assumed that it showed up as just a blank. Does it already have cutouts?
No, but it's 3 pieces. So you have two
Oh,
side pieces
okay.
that are fine, and
Yeah.
that's because they're those side braces that come in at an angle. So those
Right.
get riveted in. Then you have a center piece that bolts via nut plates to it, and that part's removable. But
Okay.
you can't fit like a big screen in that panel with a normal size radio stack next to it. It's too
Mm-hmm.
wide, and it would cut into the other panels, and that wouldn't work. So I'm going to see if there's a way to redo that and still make it all work.
Yeah, that's funny. I hadn't even thought about that being 3 pieces because I've been watching Ryan's panel, and
He's got all the room in the world. He's building an RV.
but Joe, who we mentioned before, in Joe's RV8, he's got two G3X, like the big
Big fender.
screens.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. I mean,
You can do as
crazy
long as you
expensive.
remote avionics for everything else.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
don't have to
That's true.
put anything in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, second comm radio for you, you said because you plan on doing formation stuff, but you're an Air Force guy. So don't you guys fly fingertip with just hand signals and head nods and like you wink at each other and that's all
Not
you
in the
got to do?
spot. It's a little too big to do that kind of thing. And we had two VHF com radios, two UHF com radios, two HF com radios. We had two of everything on that plane. And I was
Yeah.
used to sitting at my station listening to at least 3 or 4 of those radios all at the same time. You just kind of adjust the volume of each one so they're slightly different so you know who you're listening to.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
a good example for us would be if we were doing air refueling,
Yeah.
the pilots wouldn't have to listen to air traffic control anymore because the tanker would be doing it for them. But I, at the
Mhm.
engineer station, would still listen just so I knew if something was coming up. So I would be listening to the tanker on the intercom or on one
Uh-huh.
radio, and I would have ATC on the other so I could hear what's going on. So to me, two com radios is a handy thing to have.
Yeah.
Been in plane, single com has failed before, and it's not the end of the world, but it's inconvenient.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I've flown a plane that had only one comm radio, so I would prefer to have two because that's what I'm comfortable with. And
I flew a few that
obviously,
had none.
uh,
I said I've flown a few now that had none.
oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, speaking of, you were kind of hopeful that maybe you'd get to go out in a Satabria this weekend, but it sounds like
Yeah, the weather is crappy this weekend, so I do have it set up, but we called it off due to weather. So hopefully next weekend I'll
uh-huh.
go up for one ride, and I'm going to do some spin training, some upset recovery, maybe some basic aerobatic stuff. It'll be a good time. And I
That's
brought
cool.
the
Well,
360, so hopefully I can get some really cool footage of it. So
yeah, I bet you will, man. I'm really impressed with that camera. I mean, I've seen other people use it on plane, and I already know it's cool for that. But I was really surprised how cool it is in your shop for your channel. It really does give, and I don't know why it would be any different than a GoPro or anything else, but watching it, it does give a really good kind of first person view of the shop, like you're standing in there.
the
That thing's
field
really cool.
better with it. It just gives you that kind of feeling. And I might do
Yeah.
some recordings when I get back where I just leave it in 3D. So if somebody wants to just turn around and look at the wall or whatever they want to look at, I might do an entire video where it's just free range and you can look at whatever you want to look at in the shop, which is what I'm going to do.
I think that's a really cool idea. After recently watching Flight Shop's video where he left one like that during aerobatic, but I was surprised. I don't watch YouTube on the computer very often. I usually watch it on TV, and I was surprised that even watching it through the app on my like Fire Stick for my TV, you could still completely control it watching it on TV. That's a really cool thing. I have resisted the urge to buy that again and again and again, knowing that it is like a roll servo or
Yeah.
something else that I probably should
Well, I
be
would have bought it
buying.
for my, but I only ended up with it now because it was a Christmas present. So I'm very
Yeah.
grateful for that present.
By the way, because this somewhat relates to our last episode, I have not been perfect at resisting the urge to spend money on stuff that doesn't build my airplane. And yeah, I know. So I ordered a 3D printer.
I,
I mean, obviously, like the world listens to me, so we had that conversation, and more of it shows up in my algorithm. It's something that I've been interested in, but the price point for the price point was, it was much lower than I had thought that it would be. So, but it'll be a few more weeks till it gets here.
that's not bad. They've come way down, and their capabilities have gone way up. And you'll
Yeah,
have some that are not perfect, and you'll have others that will make you rip your hair out because you can't figure out why it's doing what it's doing. But
yeah.
it's definitely cool to have.
Yeah, I think, having spent a little time with you and seeing what you've done with it, and then looking into it a little bit more, there's a lot more utility in it than I had thought before. I know that I'll find a ton of uses for it in the house and in the shop, and so in
Just
that sense, I think it will be worth it.
looking into the electrical systems the last couple of days, there's a couple of components for redundancy that I'm putting in. And I'm like, I was looking at like, how am I going to mount that in the plane? And then it dawned on me, I'm like, I'll just make a 3D printed bracket for it, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can't find it, I'll just make it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was thinking about. I mean, mostly that's what I think about with it is, obviously it's very popular for like storage and organization and stuff like that. But I'm thinking about brackets and stuff. In fact, if you can see this up behind me, that is my horizontal stabilizer that is now artwork in my office. And if it looks like it's kind of high up the wall, it is because I still have to mount the elevators to that. So I made sure that there was enough room that those could be on there and not tucked behind that other monitor. And why do I have 4 monitors in my office? Okay. I'll just explain this because I'm sure when you came over here, you're like, what the heck, man? I'm not a gamer or anything like that. I do bookkeeping and I edit my videos for YouTube. I ended up with the ones that are on my desk in front of me here. I've got these 3 30-inch, 34-inch curved monitors, whatever, because I was out of town for work. And when I hate working on the laptop. It's just too small. I mean, look at these glasses. Like, I need real estate. And yeah, I went into Costco and they're on sale for like $99. So I got one and then I took it back to the hotel room and I'm like, it's only $99. I should have another one. And then when I came home, for a weekend trip to like mow the lawn, I put one in my office. And so then when that show was done, I came back. Now I have 3 of them. And then this last year, when I went up on the road for work again, I didn't want to take this whole setup I have in my office apart. So I'm like, I'll just work on the laptop, and then went to Costco and that monitor was on sale. And so
Nice.
that's been sitting in a box in a closet for the last 4 months. I'm like, I might as well just go ahead and make my office more officey. So I actually do have an application, a reason that I use that one over there, other than just being an idiot with way too many screens in my house for one guy.
But the artwork looks great.
Yeah, man. I've been saying that I was going to do that forever. Of course, it only took like 10 minutes to hang it up. I don't know why I delayed so long. One thing that I was thinking about when I was putting it up, though, is that horizontal stabilizer. In my mind, it was never that big, but it's like 8 feet wide.
Yeah.
It is it's a really big structure.
Yeah, it's huge. I will be
Yeah.
very happy when it's finally mounted to the fuselage and it has a permanent home. It's going to be a
Yeah,
while.
permanent home mounted to the fuselage. And then when you think about, or when I think about that, I'm also thinking about a permanent home like a hangar.
Yeah, that's getting to be more of a real issue sooner than I probably thought it was.
Well, your wings are basically
I
done,
haven't
and you're
done
going
any
to be
of that.
diving into your fuselage here very shortly, and it won't be too long until you're fitting those wings for the first time. It won't be too long after that till you don't want to have them off of there anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, not that far off. I mean, I thought the wings were going to take me longer to build than what they actually did.
yeah.
So I'm not sure how to feel about the fuselage. I know a lot goes on in it and it slows people down, and then you get to the systems and that really slows you down. But I seem to power through a lot of stuff when I'm actually at home and I just start doing it. So, I mean, yeah, it's a real possibility that maybe next year sometime this thing needs to go to a hangar because it's too much airplane for the garage anymore.
I mean, at the pace that you're moving, and the fact that it's late January, I would say when you say next year, surely in 2026, I think by the end, if not earlier, by at least by the end of 2026, you're going to be needing a hanger.
I think so. I hope so. But
Yeah,
that's the other problem is, yeah, the nearest place to me that has hangars is Cleveland. And last time I checked, the waiting list was like 86 people long.
yeah. But
So
there are hangers out there. People get
not
hangers.
getting a,
Yeah, people get hangers all the time. It seems like I think that that's definitely one of those, like, it's not what you know, but who you know kind of
yeah.
things when it comes to getting hanger. And the Chanot field, that new field, I think that they finally got approval to start building hangers over there, and that's something that I'm very interested in.
Yeah, that's going to be the leading contender, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll
Definitely
see how
rather
that goes.
my test flying out of that area, I think, than the Cleveland airport. Nothing but trees around the Cleveland airport.
Yeah, yeah. You certainly have a lot more options if you go to Chanot Field. That field's completely surrounded by trees, but like as the crow flies, you're what, 2 miles to Conroe?
Yeah, so there's choices there that doesn't really exist in Cleveland.
Yeah,
Not saying that's going to be a problem with my electrically dependent airplane and an engine I plan to build myself, but I want to be able to make it back somewhere. So
yeah. Well, I mean, if you do your testing at Cleveland, just do it all at like 11,500 feet. So
see, and
yeah,
there's the other problem. Class Bravo is right above
that's
the
right.
airport.
You can't
Class
you can't
Bravo.
get you can't get up there to glide to safety. Yeah. Well, let's see. If you are moving into a hangar um, sometime in 2026 because you have completed the fuselage, I would imagine that probably sometime in 2026, I'm going to be um, pretty close to finished with my left flap.
Yeah, let's talk about that because that looked really painful.
That thing was a thing of beauty, and it has turned into a piece of crap. It has been such a fiasco. We talked about it last week that I had my day of destruction because I wanted to replace two rivets that are fairly unnecessary. And I spent the whole week here in the office just doing bookkeeping work, trying to get caught up, to get everybody ready for tax season, which is fine. So yesterday I went back out into the shop to do a little bit of work. The idea being, remember, I already had the replacement rib that I needed because I messed that thing up so badly. Well, yesterday when I was going to prep that rib and get ready to start putting that thing back together, I realized that some of the holes that I drilled out left such a mess that there's really no way around it. I mean, and to the point that there's one of the holes got walled out so badly that I can't even upsize that hole. One possibility would have been that I could just drill a new hole, make a doubler. But today when I went out and looked at it, and that was something that I was going to talk to Van's builder support about if that was a possibility. But when I went out and looked at it today, there's not enough room in that. You know what? I'm going to bring this piece up on the screen
Oh,
here
sure.
for our
Screen
viewers.
share.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do the whole thing. We can do the whole thing. So, have you got that there on your screen?
I can see it.
Okay,
That looks.
so yeah, so it's this area right here. This is the inboard. So for our listeners, what we're talking about is the inboard end of the flap and the forward spar. There's a heavy bracket assembly that we kind of somewhat fabricated. One piece we fabricated from just a piece of angle, and the other one we just did a lot of work in match drilling too. But these are both 1/4 inch aluminum, and they are held together with AN 470 rivets, big, solid universal head rivets, and they are match drilled to either the end rib or the forward spar, depending on which piece you're talking about. And when you look at this, um, or when you're working on this, for those of you who are watching this piece of angle right here, it mounts to, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes that get match drilled into that forward spar, plus the 3 that are already there that match to the forward spar and the forward flange of the end rib. 2 of these pulled rivets were not set properly, and I didn't like it. Now, There are the 5 rivets here. And then this thing with 5 more solid rivets mates up to the other piece of 1/4 inch aluminum. So they form that angle around. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. So that's 10. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more. 7 more. So that's 17 solid rivets tying this thing to the assembly. This is excluding the 3, of which 2 I didn't like. This thing is so beefy, and I decided I needed to replace these 2. Now, it wasn't necessarily a bad decision to replace them. They weren't set properly. Do good work, replace them. But it wasn't necessary. And what ended up happening, just to recount, is that when I tried to drill these out, the bottom one here, the lowest one, when I was trying to, after I drilled through the rivet head and removed that, then you try to punch out the rest, the tail of the rivet. When I did that, it just bent the crap out of this flange on that rib, where that rib was no longer usable. So then I had to remove the rib. And to remove the rib, I had to drill out not only the 17 rivets I just talked about, but all of the rivets attaching the skins to the rib. And that just turned into a bloody mess. And so bad that today I realized not only do I have to replace that rib, which I already have, I have to replace that spar. There's not enough room when you look at this piece of angle. There's not enough space in there to ignore one of the holes and create a new hole and use a doubler. There's not enough edge distance, or what's the other term? Edge distance is the distance from the hole to the edge of the material. There's another term, I forget, but the distance between holes themselves. And it depends on how many rivet rows you have, blah, 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 blah. But basically, you need 4 times the diameter of the hole, space between holes, and you can't do it. So I need to replace that entire spar, which means I need to drill out another 130 rivets, including the pull rivets that gave me so much trouble before. Those go into the 4 interior ribs, the other end rib. Man, it just goes and goes and goes. So here's what happened. What had happened was nothing bad happened. Nothing bad happened. I did this, all of this. I completely removed this forward spar in, I think it took me an hour and 20 minutes today before we got on this call. By the way, I do have this spar. I have a spare spar. I have a spare spar because this was also part of the replacement part for the laser cut parts. Now, the spar that I have, the replacement spar that I have, is laser cut. And so I was inspecting it and I can't find any really bad holes in there. I don't know yet if it's good enough to use. What I need to do is go through all of the holes on the top and bottom flanges of that spar. You can tell that it's laser cut because they got those kind of funky shaped holes, but none of them are real keyholed. So I need to go through and then final size drill them with the reamer and see if they're clean, good holes. And if so, I can roll with this.
Get out the old magnifying glass.
Yeah. Yeah. It may be fine. It may not. But regardless, I do need to remake both of those brackets. I do have enough material left of the angle to do that forward bracket. The side bracket, I need to order that. That was a part that we modified, and I don't have a spare for that. So I am going to have to order that. I am going to have to go to Vans. That won't be expensive, and the shipping won't be expensive either. If I do replace the spar's like $52, but the shipping is probably also $52 on that. And of course, I'm going to have to order some rivets because I've drilled out so many damn rivets again.
I mean, shit. So I'm trying to point at it as if you can see me, but you need to replace the bracket that we bent to 6 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to, and it's not a problem with these. why this got messed up as badly as it did was because the way that these rivets were set, the factory head was on the inside, and so I had to drill through the shop head because they were
Uh,
locked in. And good luck trying to drill straight through the middle of the original hole from the squished shop head. It's not going to happen. And most of them were pretty good. Like you could upsize them a little bit and go with a larger rivet, except where the very forward end of it, where you have these five, and it's a pretty close rivet row. That rivet row of five, one of those holes got chamfered really badly, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's got a big notch in it, and it's like the end one, so it's not usable. So I'm telling you, man, this thing has turned into quite the rodeo.
all
I
for
was
two.
only half joking when I told you yesterday that I'm just going to weld the flaps to my wings and call it a day. I just need more practice with
Yeah,
my
got
welder.
no flap landings anyway, so you know.
Yeah. I'll just set him. I'll mount him at like a 10-degree position and just make peace with the fact that I won't actually ever be able to go 200 miles an hour, but I can land at a normal speed. Yeah. So that's what's gone on with Flat Fiasco 2025. It is what it is. I mean, that's part of building. Obviously, you've seen the corner of shame in my shop. It's not the first time I've messed up parts. It was not that bad today drilling out all the rest of those rivets. I did use, that the pull rivets that attach the spar to the interior ribs. There are two on each rib, the forward flange of those ribs, and one's easy and one's really, really, really hard
Yep, the
because
one
you
where
have that leading edge of the top skin hangs over. And so for the ones that were easy to access, I used that rivet removal tool, the blind rivet removal tool that was sent to me by Jack Cole Freeman. Thanks, Jack. That thing's brilliant, man. It works so great. Just a couple hits and the head just falls off and the back falls out of it. And no,
get me
I
one.
mean, you can mess anything up, but no, really, really easy. And then I was really surprised though, mainly because I had so much trouble with the other ones. But when I did these ones, I used my right angle drill with the, I don't know if you got these, but when I got my kit from Cleveland, I got a few bags of different bit sizes of different lengths to screw into the right angle drill thing. And so I have a really, really stubby, I mean, it's like maybe a half an inch long, number 30 drill bit that goes on the right angle drill. So you can fit that in there and it's easy enough to manipulate it to hold it and go really, really slowly. And those came off no problem at all. It's really
Yeah, I did
mystifying how
that right angle drill. The one you're talking about, the one I bought,
yeah.
the right angle drill off of Amazon that spins at like a billion RPM. You can't get into too tight of a space, and if you, I made the mistake. I don't know if I think I had it on the video or I explained it one time, but I put a, I don't even know why I did it, but I had my 12-inch bit on there,
On the right
which
angle.
the right drill with a 12-inch bit, but I had the 12-inch like number 30 bit on there, and I
Yeah.
checked it in, and I did the typical. You got to give it a couple good squeezes.
Yeah.
The bit was so long and it spins so fast that the bit
It just,
bowed and immediately bent itself. It just bent itself from the RPM and instantly regretted it. Looked at it like, I'm stupid.
dang.
I knew better than that.
So the right
So
angle
I have
drill I
those
have,
bits now.
yeah. The right angle drill I have is it's an extension. So you just chuck it up in whatever drill that you're using.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. I think I do have one of the. Well, I had one. I think
Yeah.
my kids. But yeah.
Yeah. So that thing has been really handy. Although that thing is also part of the reason why the other part of my conversation about my building this week has to do with the Cherry Max rivets, because there are a few rivets on the aft spar, the wing aft spar, that I need to replace because when I drilled those out, the hole got
Oh,
boogered
for the
up.
that bracket. Yeah.
Yeah, there's along the flap brace on the very inboard portion of the flap brace where it's on that big spar doubler, and then also the aileron bracket as well. And so I goofed around yesterday educating myself on Cherry Max rivets and how to properly determine the correct length of the rivet. The naming convention or the for the Cherry Max rivets, and I would say pull rivets in general, is not the same as solid rivets. Diameter is still the same. It's still described in 30/2 of an inch. The length is described in 16ths of an inch, but it's not talking about the length of the rivet. It's talking about the grip length, which is different. So with the solid rivet, the length is describing the entire length of the rivet, excluding the head of the rivet. The grip length for a pull rivet, grip length is describing the amount of material that needs to be gripped. Like, what is that stack of material? That's the thing that needs to be measured. And so I don't know if it's necessarily applicable to other types of pull rivets, but for Cherry rivets, Cherry Max rivets, which, I mean, for people who don't know, these are a suitable replacement for structural applications, a suitable replacement for solid rivets. And then just be sure, call builder support and make sure that in this particular spot that's doable. Anyways, yeah, so the grip length, so you have a little gauge that you tuck, like a little, kind of like a little depth gauge like you would have on your calipers, but it's got a little knot on the end so you can, because these are for blind rivets, right? That's the whole idea. Usually it's a blind rivet. You can't get to the other side. So how can you be sure that you're measuring it correctly? So basically think about like the end of your calipers that you'd use to measure depth, but it's got a little knot on it. So you stick it down through the hole and then lift it back up until that knot catches on the other edge of the hole. And then you can get the measurement off of that. Although I got 5 of every size of a Cherry Max rivet that Vans sells when I stopped by there, I do not have the size that I need. They don't have a really wide selection of sizes.
Of course not.
Yeah, they don't have a wide, they kind of have a random selection of sizes, but these ones I need to go up from a -4 to a -5. I need to drill these holes up a little bit larger, but I did find the correct ones that I need on spruce. And one of the things I learned on spruce is that Cherry Max rivets are not cheap, but at spruce they are about half of what Vans charges for the same rivet. So I think
Gotta
that
shop
these
around.
particular, yeah, these -5 Cherry Max rivets, Vans is selling them for like $1.91 a piece, and Spruce has them for 98 cents a piece. So that's why we don't build, even though structural, why we don't build a whole airplane with Cherry Max rivets is because
Cost
15,000 rivets. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, $15,000 just for rivets. No, we use the solid ones that we buy by the pound, and it costs fractions of a penny, so you don't cry every time they roll across the floor.
Yeah, I think I
So
just bought a pound of the 3.5s, and it was like 20 some odd bucks or $30, I think.
yeah, that's what I need to. I need to order, especially after today. I need to order more 3.5s, and then just go ahead and get a bunch more of the 4.5s, the fives, all that
Yeah, you're
kind of
paying
stuff.
a bunch of them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll go ahead and add it on there. By the way, I mentioned before, I still have the screen share up here, don't I? I'm going to
Yeah,
take this screen. I think everybody's seen what they want to. That's the flap, and I know that the reason you're here is because you want to see us. Oh, let me get the mouse back over here. Yeah, this is what you came for right here.
yeah, you saw that.
Two ugly guys talking about airplanes.
There you go.
Oh yeah, on our phone conversation the other day, I was saying that I thought that there was a aircraft spruce distribution center here in Texas, and there is. It's up in the Dallas Fort Worth area. So if you ever have a whole pile of stuff you want to get, you can tell them which warehouse you want, and you can do will call instead of having them ship it. So
Keep that in mind because I've definitely got some more expensive things to get here before too much longer.
yeah, it's like free shipping over $350, but that's a place that I pass through from time to time anyway. So it might be a good idea to just like if I'm going that way, get a whole bunch of AN nuts and bolts and all that kind of stuff that I don't want to pay shipping on. So Yeah, so that kind of brings us up to date with where I am at on this whole. I'm not even building the wings. I'm not building a Vans RV8. I'm not building an airplane. All I'm building is a freaking left flap. That's my entire life
They're,
as a
they're the
yeah.
easiest flight controls that you're going to build.
That's a, I mean, there's a little bit of BS that pops up in the plans every now and then, but that's gold
Yeah.
at this point. I mean, but this is definitely, yeah, yeah, this is definitely like totally avoidable. I mean, avoidable, of course, if I just set them properly in the first place, but then it's kind of like you know, you go up and you're like, oh, that looks a little weird. And you scratch it a little bit and the whole thing blows up. Um, that's what this has turned into. It's kind of comedy.
Butterfly wings, man. Once touched.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's how that has gone, and that's so next for me, building wise. Obviously, we have to get this done, and there are some parts I need for it, but I haven't done anything like torque tubes or whatever you call them for the ailerons and
Oh
all of
yeah,
that stuff.
those push rods or whatever they are. Yeah, I don't remember what they're called either. Those will be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. So I'll get into that, and yeah, carry on with my building life. I have. In terms of the work that I've been, you know, doing here in the office, at least the endless days of it, that will be coming to a close pretty soon, so I can get back to falling behind in real life and spending more time working in the shop. I wanted to mention that we have gotten some not specific like, hey, I want you guys to talk about this, but just some good feedback from people who listen to the show. They seem to enjoy it. Haven't heard anybody complain about it yet, so that's good. But now that
Good.
we're putting our faces on this thing,
There's bound to be complaints.
yeah, bring on the trolls. Yeah, so yeah, we have now listeners in 5 countries, including the United States. We've got Australia, Great Britain, India. Although you suggested that maybe that person was using a VPN, but let's see. Let me look at this again. United States, Australia, UK, Russia, and India. Of course, I mean, I would not expect any less. We are obviously available on Apple and Spotify, and soon also on YouTube. So you guys can see us talk about this stuff. And we'll try to be as accurately descriptive as possible for you who are listening only and can't see when we pull the plans up or other sorts of things. But this will be a more visual media than it was before, obviously, and we'll continue to improve upon the tech side of this thing. But we really do appreciate everybody who has been kind enough to give us a listen and then also to share some feedback. So, again, we love the glowing reviews. We'll take that all day long. If you have any criticism, yeah, keep it to yourself. It's not cool, man. It's in the title. We are not experts.
They're not
So,
experts, and we're
yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah. So, yeah, we're coming up on the hour mark. This has been fun. I think that it's only going to get better from here. I can't say the same about my airplane building, but at least the podcast, I think. And Tim, yeah, let's do this again a week from now. Hopefully, I'll have redeemed myself in the Gilbertson Aero Factory. And then for all of you listening who found us just on your own, that's amazing. You should check out our respective YouTube channels. I am That Hippie Pilot on YouTube. You can follow my build there. I post a video for every single build session. Tim is, what don't you talk about,
T-Flight.
Tim?
Yep, I am T-Flight on YouTube, or I think if you search it, it's T-Flight 77 at YouTube.
Yep.
But if you go, you'll find the build videos. There's over 100 of them out there now, which is crazy.
Yeah. Tim is doing a great job on his build, and he's doing a great job on his videos. And he's got, for those of you who are currently building or thinking about it, Tim, I think, has come up with a lot of good ideas. And so if you want to see how not to do it, definitely watch all 145 of my videos. And then if you want to see how to do it, catch up with Tim's channel, more than 100. So yeah, we should probably wrap it up here. Thanks for being here, and we'll catch you on the next one. I think we should just let it
Good